report, Coach. Not too bad. A little scary there with Yard King and that concussion.
It is. We were really wanted to get into this game and win the game first and then come out pretty healthy. And we've got such a big game this week that we need to make sure we got all those guys to dance. Yari has a concussion. You know, it's kind of iffy whether or not he'll be able to play or not because, you know, we're about 10 days out from our next game. He may make it. I'm not sure. And then you saw where Pat Washington and Derek Wilder had little nagging injuries also.
Pat Washington, I think, did his ankle coming off the field.
He did. I think he actually did it on the field, but, you know, as he was coming off, he figured out that it was hurt.
All right, that's the Pell Mental Health Injury Report. We'll take a time out here on the Buddy Pough Show. When we come back, we'll have more of your second half highlights. South Carolina State taking on Central Michigan, Game 1 from Mount Pleasant, Michigan.
Clothing for Buddy Pough, provided by Bill Owings Custom Clothing. Bill Owings Custom Clothing is a proud sponsor of the Buddy Pough Show.
All right, each week here on the Buddy Pough Show, we will recognize the Regional Medical Center All-Heart Player. And, of course, the Regional Medical Center of Orangeburg really appreciate their sponsorship here on the Buddy Pough Show. And, Coach, when you start talking about a all-heart player, in your mind, what does that player represent?
That player is a guy that you can always depend on to give his all on every snap. And, you know, this guy sticks his body in there. He kind of gives his body up. And, you know, sometimes after you do that kind of stuff, you may have to go to the Regional Medical Center. So, you know, he's this guy who goes out every play and gives it his all.
Based on this past week's play at Central Michigan and leading up to practice for this game, Coach, who's this week's Regional Medical Center All-Heart player?
This week's All-Heart player is Joe Thomas. And Joe Thomas is from Blackville, South Carolina. He came in as a running back. And, you know, I saw almost immediately that this guy had more of a defensive style kind of body. He's a tall, lanky kind of young man who, you know, has really shown himself to be a hard-nosed character. And, you know, that almost spells linebacker all over it. And he has made some big plays for us. In his only second year, he came in and sat out a year. And his dad used to come by my office every day and say, give my boy a chance, give my boy a chance. And now he's there, and we've given him a chance, and it's really worked out good. And he's my homeboy of sorts because I'm from over around Nices, and Nices is right close to Blackville. So, you know, we're close now that he's such a good player.
All right, the Regional Medical Center All-Heart player this week, Joe Thomas. Let's get to Thursday's second half highlights. South Carolina State taking on Central Michigan. Of course, the Bulldogs kicked off, so we received football to begin the second half, Coach. And that second half is so important, and we just didn't get off to a good start.
We didn't, and we ended up not being able to feel the ball cleanly there. And that kickoff return thing has been a little bit of an Achilles heel for us, and we've got to get that straightened out. But, you know, we end up getting the ball down to about the 12-yard line, and we get a pretty good run to get it out to about the 15. But, you know, we don't really get enough. We end up punting it back to them, and then they get their only real long drive of the game going. And, you know, they start off by just kind of loading it up and running power at us from the short side of the field, and the next thing you know, they eventually get it down the field and get it in the end zone here.
Zerlon Tipton was probably the most effective rusher. He ended up with 73 yards, got most of it in the second half as Central Michigan gets it close, and Tipton dives in from 1 yard out. And, of course, that makes it 21 with the point after touchdown, 21-6. But still, 7 minutes to go. It's a 15-point, as we say, two-score game.
Oh, I guarantee you. And all we really wanted to do was to hang in there so that we could have a chance to win the football game at the end. And, you know, we kept it to that particular stat all the way through to the end. And, you know, that's all you can ask of your team in situations like these. And, you know, we just never did make the play on offense to get there. This was a ball we threw to Trey Williams there. And, you know, we were about a yard short of a first down. And this is kind of something that we got to figure out how to clean up because we got to convert those third downs.
Going into the fourth quarter, trailing by 15. Central Michigan with the football. This is Phillips on the carry, but Christian Thompson, one of his 10 tackles on the night.
Right. CT, as we call him, made a good many plays. And after talking to our defense coach, he was in the right place to make the plays. So, you know, and he was the guy, he was one of the other guys who hit the quarterback earlier. This is a play here where we stripped the football away from him. I think Ronell Ferguson gets him down, and Mason Harris, I thought, had it picked up and didn't quite get it picked up. The next thing you know, they get it back to me. You know, we do make them punt, but, you know, it wouldn't have been the same as if we had got that ball down about the 20-yard line or so.
Big punt from Richie Hogan, gets it down to the 38-yard line of our own. Bulldogs go back on the attack and trying to get outside on the corner. Caleb Davis just not able to turn the corner.
Didn't get quite a good enough cut there. You know, our running backs got to get that guy down the ground and get his nose to the goal line. And, you know, in a case like that, that guy continues to run and widens the perimeter to the point where we don't have any space, and then we end up throwing an incompleted ball that had a little bit of a missed assignment there by one of our receivers. And then, you know, you see Donovan Richards there. Donovan is the, I think, best player, defensive player in our league. And, you know, he played, I thought, really good there again yesterday. So, you know, they go for a field goal and then they miss the field goal.
Central Michigan, of course, as coach says, misses the field goal, and that was the way it ended on Saturday. South Carolina State losing to Central Michigan 21-6, and that was the way they ended up on Saturday night. With that, we'll take a time out here on the Buddy Pough Show. We'll tell you what is up next for South Carolina State and give you some final thoughts on Thursday night's game against Central Michigan. That and more coming up next here on the Buddy Pough Show.
For the next Big Bulldog game, stock up on the most delicious tailgating packages around at Fats Cafe, where regulars are treated special and everyone's a regular.
All right, the Fats Cafe facts. Say that 3 times really fast. Here's South Carolina State score, 21-6, the loss of Central Michigan. Rutgers really taking it to North Carolina Central. And then, Coach, when you look around the MEAC, a busy time coming up, culminating on Sunday afternoon in the MEAC SWAC Challenge when Prairie View takes on Bethune-Cookman. That'll be an interesting ball game.
The Sunday game is our big game right now because we're sitting there waiting to see what Bethune looks like. And they're going to be on TV on Sunday. We'd like to see them play in a way where, you know, we can formulate some kind of idea before we actually get the film. We should get the film in that night, but, you know, we'll be sitting around the TV watching that game Sunday afternoon. I'll
tell you what, one more final look at Thursday night's game, South Carolina State, Central Michigan, the State Farm drive of the game. We go back to South Carolina State's first possession. And I think, Coach, the reason this was so important, it was because after Central Michigan scored on that 45-yard pass play, your offense buckled down, came back, and really established itself and got the football back down the field.
It was the first time we had gotten the ball. And, you know, the fact that we were showing that we could move the football gave us some confidence. The fact that it was going to be a game, but, you know, from that point on, we didn't do nearly as much as I would have liked, but it did show that we had potential to be a better football team than we were.
And, of course, it was culminated by Blake Erickson coming on last year, first-team All-MEAC, preseason first-team All-MEAC coach. And you start talking about a guy who really had an outstanding game from the punting department and the scoring department. Blake answered the call.
Oh, he was our MVP, said that he did pretty much everything as good as we could expect.
You know, you start talking about South Carolina State now. Bethune-Cookman coming up next week. But let's look back at Central Michigan, Coach. What were the things, I'm sure defensively, we were pretty much fine. Offensively, we've got some work to do.
We need to run the football a little bit better up inside. One of the things that you try to do is you try to run those outside runs in a way where you stretch them out some. And, you know, as you get them stretched some, you ought to be able to run up inside. But, you know, we did have some success running outside, but we never did really get the inside running game going. And we got to go back and revisit that with our staff and with our team, because that's got to be something that we got to make happen if we ought to be successful.
One of the things that most people may not have realized was Central Michigan, their offensive line was like a basketball team. Both tackles were 6'8", the guards were 6'6", and the center was 6'3". Just a huge offensive line for Central Michigan, Coach, but your defensive front, including 4 first-year guys, handled it extremely well.
I thought we did a nice job of hanging in there with their offensive front, and, you know, our guys look like they're going to be okay that way. Defensively, in general, we've always been pretty good in those kinds of situations, and I think we'll be that way this year. We just got to go back and find a way to make sure that we do the job of getting our offense up to speed.
You know, you start talking about getting the offense up to speed, and we talk about filling the shoes of Malcolm Long. And, of course, you know, Malcolm had many more ups than downs during his career at South Carolina State, and you realize that now when you're bringing a guy like Derek Wiley, who's had some moments. You know, everybody wants to back up quarterback until that other guy is gone. Now with Derek Wiley, what about the commitment this week to getting him to the point you need him to be?
That'll be maybe as important a thing as we'll do this week. And, you know, the reads that he's got to make, the throws that he's got to make, you know, the actual operation of our team, you know, are things that we've got to make a pretty good size improvement from week 1 to week 2. You know, we saw a good many things. We've already discussed with the staff those things that we think really have to change some for us to be successful. And Derek's a good bit of that, but now it's got to be a whole team effort. We've got a lot of guys out there. This offense is one that's built around cohesiveness and coordination of the entire group, and we got to make sure that we get all those guys on the same page, because that's what it's going to take to make it happen.
You know, we haven't talked about the receiving core. Tyler McDonald did a good job, I thought, catching the football. Trey Williams, but Coach, I thought there were probably too many times where we came up and we needed 12 yards and we ran a 10-yard route.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, you kind of, you know, fixed by the exact number of steps you're supposed to take within the route, but you got to have some common sense and some of that kind of stuff. You got to understand that you need to make sure that you convert the third down.
All right, we're looking forward to next week. Coming up, of course, Bethune-Cookman, Coach. They've got a new quarterback. They talk about a freshman quarterback. Quickly, what you know about him without seeing him?
Well, we don't think that he's going to be the guy yet. We're not sure who's going to be the guy. That's why we're waiting for tomorrow. But they've got a transfer in from Maryland. They got a high school guy. Looks like they're going to be a little bit different kind of team than they were last year. All
right, well, that's going to do it for this first edition of the Buddy Pough Show. And thank you for joining us. Of course, we hope you join us on Saturday down in Daytona Beach, Florida, when the Bulldogs take on the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats. And, of course, next week, right here on the Buddy Pough Show.
Thank you for watching the Buddy Pough